Okay. Good morning to everyone, and thanks for coming. Thanks for coming to this new year of the IRCrES seminar. Today it's a particular pleasure to start because the speaker it's an old friend of our institute. It's Professor Marcus Seeber from the Department of Political Science and Management of the University of Agder in Norway, that has started his career at our institute some years ago, and has a really nomad career, we can say, because from Rome moved to Lugano, then in Belgium, Ghent, to arrive in Norway at Agder. Today, his presentation is his contribution exploring the impact of cost action on scientific collaboration, written with Mattia Cattaneo and Elisa Alessio. Nothing to add. Please, Marco, the stage is yours.
Oh, thank you very much, Lucio and Antonio, for the invitation and for IRCrES. So, as you were anticipating, this presentation will explore the impact of cost actions. Can you confirm you're seeing the full screen with the presentation? Everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I ask you to mute, please? Because I think somebody left the microphone open. Okay. So basically, to give a bit of a background about the core topic of this work in progress, hopefully to be submitted relatively soon, is some information about scientific collaborations in general and the role that they play in modern science. Over the last almost century, at least with acceleration in the last 50 years, modern science has become a collaborative endeavor. So scientific collaborations are really crucial and central in modern science. And when we examine the scientific networks, we can see that they have some desirable properties, and in particular, they are highly interconnected. To the extent that we can define the scientific network as a small word, which means that basically you can connect every node in the network with just a few steps. It's important to realize that the shape of collaboration, so how the team are assembled and to develop scientific work together, has an impact on the creativity and success of the work itself. For example, some studies found recently that works which is the results of multinational and gender diverse collaborations, have on average a greater impact. And collaborations is beneficial in general, but also specifically it affects some categories strongly, more strongly. For example, scientific collaboration is very important for researchers from developing countries because they can get access to, for example, facilities which might not be available to them, or modern techniques, or even social resources. And also collaboration is particularly important for interdisciplinary research, which is crucial for tackling complex problems. Can I ask to mute, please? Thank you. So what kind of forces and mechanisms typically shape scientific collaborations? On the one hand, networks of scientific collaboration are developed through cumulative individual decisions from scientists themselves. So at the micro level, in most cases, it might appear as a cumulative process from micro level phenomena. But these decisions are not purely random, nor they are completely rational. They are affected by, if you want, some subtle forces and mechanism. And in particular, research on networks highlighted two different groups, major groups of motivations that play an important role in the establishment of any social tie. And these are so-called assortativity and proximity mechanism. So assortativity mechanism identify the forces that enable the creation of a relationship in the similarity, compatibility, and complementarity between the actors' attributes, their traits. So, for example, I've put here a picture of the yearly meeting of people with red hair that I think it happens in the Netherlands. So basically, the reason here for these people to establish some relationship, it's because they share one attribute, which is having red hairs. For scientists, similarity and complementarity means regards at least their research interest, prestige, reputation, skills, and so on. Several attributes that may favor the establishment of a scientific collaboration. The other family of mechanism is proximity mechanism. In this case, the relationship is assumed to be favored by sharing the same social, institutional, and geographical spaces. To the extent, that you can become friend of volleyball because you share the same space, you live in the same space. For scientists, this means that research collaboration are typically more likely when the geographical distance is smaller, when you work in the same country, region, institution, when you belong to the same disciplinary communities, associations, and so on. Now, as the result of these forces, collaboration is more likely typically between scientists that display similar attributes and positions, also complementary, but mostly similar. Therefore, because of this mechanism, the shape of collaboration network is often suboptimal for the flow and creation of knowledge, because they will favor high clustering in the network, homophily, so the tendency of collaborating with similar others, and fragmentation. Moreover, these mechanisms tend to hinder scientists from peripheral countries and institutions, as well as interdisciplinary and intersectoral collaboration. And overall, the effect is to reduce the potential existing in the network for the generation of new knowledge. But there is some hope in a way. Let's focus for a second about proximity and collaboration. Research highlights that proximity is important to start a collaboration, but scientists collaborate from a long distance and for a long time. As a matter of fact, this is similar to other human relationships. We can think about friendship or any other relationship that sometimes starts by having the opportunity to meet, but then this friendship goes on even if we live very far away for a long time. And this is something which is observed also in scientific relationships. So proximity is especially important to establish a new collaboration, but not so much, not necessarily to maintain a scientific collaboration. For example, one study from Campos et al. Explored the impact of face-to-face interaction at conference, comparing a situation in which the same conference occurred with another situation in which it was disrupted by a storm, and they measured an increase after 4 years of 19% in co-authorship. Also, we know extensively that when they spend some mobility periods, researchers start new collaborations, and these collaborations last over time. So we might need, or there is a rationale for funding instruments allowing scientists to meet for some time on a regular basis to address some of the shortcomings of cooperation network. So to create new opportunities that might bridge some of the gaps that exist in the networks. And this is the rationale behind one of the most pervasive founding instruments of the European Union, which is COST, Cooperation in Science and Technology. COST is actually also the oldest founding schemes for research in the European Union. It exists for more than 50 years, and the goal is to connect mostly European national scientific systems through transnational research networks called actions. So a COST action provides approximately €500,000 for projects of 4 years, and they support a range of networking events like meeting, conferences, short-term scientific missions, and training schools. It doesn't cover live research cost, like cost for the personnel, for example, or instruments, only networking activities. So the idea is that COST actions create proximity. So they create the opportunity to meet for some time. So the research question that we are exploring is, do COST actions enhance scientific collaboration among the proposers of an action, which is the objective of these funding instruments? And what factors affect the capability of COST actions to promote scientific collaborations among proposers, and especially for less connected categories of scientists? So we developed some preliminary hypotheses. A first very general one is that the increase in collaborations with other proposers of the action will be greater for proposers of funded actions compared to those of non-funded actions. That's pretty straightforward. Then if we zoom in and consider funded actions, we can also expect that the increase in collaborations will be greater for active proposers than non-active proposers, because not all the proposers of an action end up to join the meeting or to the conference and so on. So of course, we can reasonably expect that in order to benefit from an action, you should at least use the instruments put at disposal. So this is, if you want, general hypothesis to explore the general effectiveness of the tool. But we can also design more specific hypotheses. For example, one important element is that we have different network inequality within the network of proposers of an action. Namely, the proposed actions differ in terms of the structure of the network of proposers at the time of the application and eventually the beginning of the action itself. What it means that some proposals are developed by a group of scientists that knows and collaborate with each other intensely and for a long time, plus also they include several other scientists, which, however, are much less connected to this core group or even not connected at all. So in this kind of starting network, we have a large disparity in the degree of connectivity, which means we have a strong network inequality among proposers. While in other cases, this is not the case. The proposals display a more balanced connectivity among its members and therefore lower network inequality. This leads to a third hypothesis. So we might assume that as when we join a group, it's more difficult to get integrated if the people in this group know each other for a long time and they have very solid relationship. In a similar vein, we might expect a similar mechanism and dynamics going on in scientific networks promoted with cost. So we formulate the hypothesis that among active proposers of founded actions, the increase in collaborations with the other proposers will be greater for proposers involved in action with lower network inequality. Another important aspect that might affect the impact of cost actions is the composition of the network, because actions might involve to a different extent categories of scientists that are typically less connected. And cost identifies and prioritizes three such categories of scientists. So group of scientists that typically are, again, less connected in scientific networks. And this includes scientists coming from what they define as cost inclusiveness target countries, so countries that have been more recently added or they are less integrated in the European scientific networks, female, women scientists, and young researchers below the age of 40. So this is, for example, the group of cost member countries. And in green, we can see what are considered inclusiveness target countries, which are also prioritized by cost actions, at least in the formulation of the proposals. So along this line of reasoning, we can formulate some hypotheses in this respect. And in particular, we can make the hypothesis that among active proposers of founded actions, for an ITC proposer, the increase in collaboration with other proposers of the action will be greater in actions with a higher proportion of ITC proposers. And similar hypotheses can also be developed for female proposers and young proposers as well. Final hypothesis, group of hypotheses regards the leadership of the network. In networks, some members play specific formal roles with specific responsibilities, like the chair, the vice chair, and working group leaders, and so on. And the proportion of leaders positions that are held by proposers from less connected categories of scientists may vary across actions. In some actions, there might be a high proportion of women leaders, and in other, a smaller one. So we can make the argument that the more the leaders involve these less connected categories of scientists, and the more they will be successful in integrating scientists from these categories or to benefit them. So we develop the hypothesis, again, that, for example, for an ITC proposer, the increase in collaboration with other proposers from the action will be greater in actions with a higher proportion of ITC proposers in leadership positions, and similar hypotheses for female and young proposers. Moving to the analytical part, we consider data from 66 founded and 519 non-founded actions from the two calls in 2015 for a total of almost 15,000, 14,500 action proposers. We measure collaboration through co-authorship of publications in Scopus for a gross number of more than 500,000 publications from proposers from 2008 until 2023. So a longer period of time before and after the beginning of the action. At least this is where the focus of our analysis. So let's move to the results. I first present some descriptive analysis, so simple, if you want, ratios. We consider two variables of interest to measure the impact in terms of collaboration. One objective could be to establish new collaborations. So this is the first variable of interest, whether new collaboration with new members, new proposers in the action have been impacted. So the first variable precisely descriptively measure this. So it's the proportion of proposers with which a proposer co-authored at least a publication over their career until time t. And we plot the evolution in this proportion over time. The other desirable effect would be on the intensity of collaboration. So it's not necessarily a new collaboration, but a very frequent collaboration in the project. And in this case, we consider 3 years time interval. What kind of comparison we do? Well, first between founded and non-founded actions, and for founded actions between active proposers and non-active proposers, where active are defined as proposers that participated in at least one activity of the action. We also removed publications with a high number of co-authors above the 95th percentile, because they could, bias in a way the measurements. So regarding the first variable, collaborations, I will go relatively quickly here and to move next to the inferential analysis. But these plots display the evolution in the proportion of collaboration on average with other members for founded and non-founded actions. And we can see that from 2015 to 2021, the increase for founded proposals was from almost 3% to 5.3%, which represent an 80% increase, and for non-founded action, a 66% increase. It's important to stress that these tests partly blur the impact, because among the founded actions, we have a proportion of proposers which were not actually active, and therefore, again, they make the results a little bit blurred. So we also made another analysis, which is focusing within the founded proposals in comparing active versus non-active proposers. And in this case, the effect it's much stronger. It's almost twice as large in terms of growth of collaboration between proposers. Regarding the intensity of collaborations, again, here we are plotting and exploring intervals of 3 years. The effect is 26% versus 15%, and when we consider founded versus non-founded actions, and 43% compared to 11% when we compare active versus non-active proposals. Moving to the inferential analysis, we have, again, two dependent variables at the individual level. So we are trying to predict collaboration evolution for every proposer in an action, with different tests that consider different samples, of course. So the first dependent variable is the ratio between the cumulative number of proposers with which proposer co-authored at least a publication over their career at time 23 minus time 2015 divided by the number of action proposers. So it's trying to measure the growth in collaboration over the period of time. And when it comes to the intensity, we have a similar ratio, which compares, however, the number of co-authorship and collaborations in a period 2023 minus the period 2012-2015, which is the period before the start of an action or the application and in the year of the call. We consider many independent variables. The first, of course, is the action has been founded, whether the proposer has been active, the measure of network inequality, and we consider the Gini index, considering the number of collaborations with other proposers at the beginning of the action. The proportion of proposers which are from ITC countries, which are women and young, the proportion of leaders that are ITC, women and young. And then we have also several control variables. I will go quickly here, like the size of the action, whether the proposer is from ITC country, the gender, whether being young or not, whether it's a main proposers, a chair, and so on. And of course, we also control for the proportion, the disciplinary area of the proposals in a way, and the starting values in terms of collaborations as controls. So let's move to the results. In the first test, we consider all the proposals, and we can see a positive, significant effect of being a proposer in a founded action, as expected by the first hypothesis. If we consider founded proposals and compare active proposers, also in this case, we can see a positive and significant effect. The most interesting results are, however, when we focus on the active proposers and consider the effect of the network inequality. And indeed, as we speculated, we can see that the concentration, the inequality has a negative effect on both new collaborations and intensity of collaborations. It's also interesting to see that the instruments is particularly beneficial for female and young researchers, while we don't see a differential effect for members from ITC countries. Look at the composition. We can see that the effect, so the probability from a member from an ITC country to increase their collaboration is greater the proportion of members from an ITC country, while we don't see this effect for the other subcategories. But one very interesting aspect that we can see is that we have a general positive effect, regardless of the characteristics of the member, of having a higher proportion of proposers from an ITC country and female. So the greater the proportion of this typology, the greater the effect on collaborations in general. Let's move to the leadership position and see if the composition of the leadership affects the impact on scientific collaboration. What we can see is that there is a positive, significant effect for female proposers, the greater the proportion of female leadership. But also, again, what is very interesting is the other general effects. We can see that there is a positive effect of ITC leaders and a negative effect of a greater proportion of young scholars in leader role. So to summarize the main conclusion of this work so far, we can indeed have a confirmation of the positive impact of cost actions on new collaboration and intensity of collaboration, and also that the impact persists after the conclusion of the action. So we consider a period in 2023. The actions typically have a 4 years duration, so they, in a way, concluded in 2019, 2020, and still the effect is visible also from the descriptive statistics some years after the conclusion of the action. We also see that the effect is stronger for female and young proposers. Those categories benefit more from cost actions, and also for ITC proposers, but when there are many ITC proposers in a way. We also see a positive effect, a positive general effect of having a greater proportion of female and ITC active proposers, and a positive effect of the ITC leadership combined with a negative effect of young leadership, and finally a positive effect of female leadership on female collaborations increase. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward for your question.
Thank you so much, Marco. And now I want to introduce Barbara Guardabascio from the University of Perugia, that is the discussant of for this seminar. Please, Barbara.
Okay, thank you so much. I will share the screen so you can tell me if you can read properly. Okay, yes. Thank you, Marco, for this presentation. Now I have also other questions apart from that, for those I put in my discussion. So probably I will tell you something more. Okay, what we see in this paper is that the paper wants to show that collaboration is crucial for knowledge creation, but networks face challenging like clustering and homophily. So we see that a lot of time clusters are based above all on similarity that people have. Sometimes we have collaborators or co-authors based on proximity in terms of geographic area, social or institutional condition. The participation in EU cost framework boosts transnational collaboration, and this action try to increase collaboration, especially for researchers that are from periphery countries, still career or women. So we know that cost want to let these cluster of persons be more favorite in their in this kind of project. The positive effect of cost persists after the action, benefit unrepresented group. First of all, main findings of the study is that a significant positive impact of cost action on increasing both the number and intensity of scientific collaboration. And we can notice that this result is for traditionally underrepresented group like early career researcher, women, scientists from peripheral countries. My question is why might certain group benefit more from cost action? It would be worth exploring how geographic and social barriers are lowered through these structured networking opportunities. And in this context, I also see that although we have a kind of problem in self-selection, if it is possible also to apply some counterfactor analysis in order to try to keep better the results that comes from the benefit of this group. Although we know we have several problems in set selection because those that participate to the action are those that are treated in a certain sense. Moreover, in a second point, I don't know, ecco qua, as the paper highlights, proximity plays a crucial role in establishing collaboration, though not as much in maintaining them. Cost action facilitate meetings and face-to-face interaction, which help collaboration. How can funding agency further leverage proximity to foster collaboration in fields where barriers to interdisciplinary international collaboration are higher? Could more virtual engagement supplement in-person activities? Moreover, given that we are in the so-called internet web era, it is possible also to suggest some new collaboration based on some analysis based on languages and looking if there are similarity among possible other co-authors and suggest co-authors to other persons. So think about the algorithm that we have in, let's say, web, when Facebook suggests you a friend, for instance, because you have something similar. It is possible also have the same looking at what we wrote and propose a possible co-author given your activities. I don't know if the web can help us for this. Homophily and fragmentation, the study pointed out how scientific networks tend to be clustered, favoring collaboration between scientists with similar attributes. While these relationships are easier to form, they may hinder interdisciplinarity or intersectoral collaboration. And my discussion point is how can the scientific community address the issue in clustering or homophily? Should funding framework like cost incentivize interdisciplinary projects, or should they remain neutral with respect to this focus? In terms of inclusiveness of target countries, cost action were successful in fostering collaboration with the scientists from ITS. The persistence of collaboration after the action end is a notable finding, indicating that this intervention may have a long-term benefit. And my point is, what are the specific challenges faced by research in ITS or peripheral institutions? How do cost action or a similar program can mitigate these challenges, and what can be improved? In terms of gender dynamic, the analysis finds that female scientists benefit more from cost action, in particular in the formation of, in the creation of new collaboration. And this one can be connected with the structural barrier that generally female have in terms of constructing academic network. So the discussion is what are the possible structural barriers that women scientists face, and how can intervention like cost be further optimized to address this issue. In terms of co-authorship, we have a measure of collaboration is established with respect to co-authorship, but it may not capture all the form of collaboration. Things about advisory law, information collaboration, and a great set of other collaboration that generally are not strictly connected with research and co-authorship. For this reason, I'm asking to looking at other kind of alternative metrics that can come from patents or joint project, dataset sharing, that can provide some relevant collaboration that are not just related to co-authorship. Finally, in terms of the limitation, the study is based on the dataset that are proposed in 2015, and the result might be reflect condition unique to that period. However, there are only co-authorship is considered. So I suppose that in terms of improving this result, we can look also to other funding policies such as of PNR or global events. Moreover, the last observation that I do, I see that from 2015 we have this increasing effect in terms of improvement of results due to cost with respect to the others project, but until 2015 I see that the increasing in not funded project is lower with respect to the one that have been funded, and I'm just want to ask if you have any idea for an explanation for why this happened. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. So I can reply, Lucio, and then we move to the Q&A.
Sure.
Again, thanks a lot. So maybe I can go over your comments one by one.
If you want to show them, or if you have the presentation, you can share the same.
I have your presentation, so I can scroll it on my screen.
Okay,
as you
okay.
wish, or maybe you can share and we can see point by one, so that everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
So the first one is this: why certain groups benefit more from cost actions? Well, the mechanism by which cost, let's say, lower the barriers is precisely that apparently these scientists have less opportunity to meet and be in an environment that enable also knowing each other, because the cost action, they create also kind of like a bit in a conference. They create also social opportunities for knowing each other and trust each other. That kind of human elements in the relationship that are very important also in scientific research. Some countries, simply are more geographically peripheral, or they come from institution. We also have this problem of institutions with different level of prestige, which actually hinder a lot of variability in the quality of the individuals. Even we can have excellent scientists in not renowned institution and vice versa. So again, I think it's the mechanism is having the opportunity to go beyond the stereotype through this meeting opportunity.
Okay. Go next.
And so that we can go on.
Yeah.
Then eventually, we can go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
How can funding agencies further leverage proximity to foster collaborations in fields where barriers to integration? So again, I focus on one aspect of the question. I think in-person meetings still are something very different than virtual. I mean, virtual, it's extremely important to maintain the relationship. So probably it is today much easier than it used to be 20, 30 years ago to maintain a relationship. So the increase in international collaboration might be the effect precisely of the fact that it's much easier, to collaborate nowadays. But to start, it's a different story, because, typically the beginning of a relationship, it's also a one-to-one interaction at some point. And either you organize speed dating, with digital tools to randomly know each other, or typically, digital meetings involve many people. So the opportunity to this one-to-one interaction emerge in meetings.
Okay.
Maybe one thing we can consider is also to have meetings at sub-regional level sometimes, not necessarily just to reduce the impact, for example, environmental impact, or to combine a bit of mixing with the feasibility of meeting them on a regular basis. But yeah, it's an interesting topic to explore. I think definitely these type of instruments are actually, very successful in terms of how many people they involve, because it's thousands of researchers, but still they receive an extremely small share of the resources. The budget of cost is maybe 100 compared to larger founding instruments. So it's there is a lot of emphasis still on individual, and maybe the collective type of funding projects might receive more attention. Yes, so the next one.
Okay.
So regarding the first, I think, mobility is one of the tools that I think can reduce the homophily mechanism. So even within the, mobility is an important component to, diversify your network. In terms of interdisciplinary projects, actually, we did a paper a few years ago to test whether we have an interdisciplinary bias in the evaluation of proposals, because there has been a few studies suggesting that interdisciplinary proposals are disadvantaged in funding selection. But we did not find these in cost, and the explanation we give is that normally research funding agencies organize evaluation by disciplinary panel, while cost doesn't. Cost put all the proposal in one box and then bottom up identify the reviewers. If you have a panel structure, it sounds logical that if you have proposals that it's, not crystal clear in the panel, it might be disadvantaged. So I think rather than, explicitly incentivize, I would say we can think about evaluation procedures that are more neutral in that respect, or at least they don't disadvantage a priori.
Okay.
There is literature on that, and I am myself interested in these and exploring, the devil in the detail in the procedure that might have an effect.
Okay, good. Next.
If we move to the next one. Well, the obstacle, I think it's double in the sense that one, it's more expensive for somebody to travel. I experienced myself, I lived for a while in Ghent, which is in the Blue Banana in Europe, very central, easy to move. And then I'm now in Norway, and it's more difficult, definitely, although we are well connected to Schiphol. But so I think one is really practical in terms of transportation. The other could be, we have in general still, a hierarchy in the prestige of systems and institutions. And again, cost provides both resources to travel and the opportunity to meet in person and go beyond stereotype. Next. I think here really the fascinating result. I was really fascinated is about the fact that the greater the share of women in an action, the greater the benefit in terms of collaboration. And this is a general effect. So it looks like, and it was interesting also regarding the leadership effects, but it seems it would be interesting to explore if there is a kind of curvilinear, because there is some research showing that gender diversity and multinational diversity, in general, diversity in teams is beneficial for the impact and the results. I mean, that's just an etiquette. It's just that behind that etiquette, there is probably diversity of thinking and perspective, which at the end it's beneficial.
I probably think that could be interacted the gender also with the country, because there is in some country where female are less considered in relevant places, while in some others this diversity is lower. So probably if you introduce an interact variable with respect to the country, you have some, I don't know, curvilinear structure, you see.
Interesting, yeah. That's something, and also in general, maybe we could test in general an indicator of gender diversity or country diversity, whatever, just to see if the effect is not necessarily, but that's a very good point. Thank you about the. There are a lot of interesting things which goes beyond, I would say, scientific networks in general about dynamics. And the last two, I think we.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
the one
definitely.
is
There are
about
other
kind
things.
of collaboration. Yeah.
Sorry?
This is about the possibility of using other kind of sources for looking at collaboration that are not strictly connected with the co-authorship, like patents or something like this.
Absolutely, one can find. This is the one where we have data more complete and retrievable. You always have a problem between aspiration and reality. Joint projects is something where there is an emphasis right now. So whether a funded project then favor others' application together, but again, the availability of this information it's really, really, really low. It's very difficult to find information on proposals, for example, a network of proposals, almost impossible. Then we have last.
Yeah, the last is just this.
Again, very interesting question. I would say for another paper, because
sure.
We selected the 2015 precisely because it's it was the one which had most complete data and was not completely disrupted by COVID, because if we consider later data we would have had really a problematic situation, but all these actions were over when the COVID arrived, so in a way and
however, I saw that before 2015, founded project where had a result that is lower in terms of increase with respect to non-founding one, while from 2015 the trend changed. So I don't know if there is probably is also due to not completeness of your data, and I don't know. I saw in your plot that in 2014 there were an increasing in a gray block, and that is higher, the increasing in the gray block with respect to the red one. But then the tendency changed from 2015.
Okay, so thank you so much, Barbara.
So I noticed this and I say, okay, why just from 2015 the trend changed, and then before it was the opposite? Maybe it could be from not completeness of your data, or maybe it could be that
maybe I can share.
2015.
Let me share the screen then, just 1 second, because maybe we can see exactly what you mean.
So the first slide.
These collaborate.
At the beginning, you have that the gray increase more than the.
No, the gray is greater here. This is 2015. It's the year of the call. The action starts actually in 2016. And you have a delay in the time. You have to think that the action starts in 2016, they have the first meetings. Then they know each other. Then they start to write on the paper. Then the paper is submitted. Then you have the peer review, you know. So and then it's eventually published. So when you see the effect, is not immediately. It's at least 3 years later, you know.
So probably in your model you need to put some lags.
Yeah, but I mean the model, the inferential model compares 2023 with 2015.
Okay, directly.
So this is I mean,
a fixed effect due to the time component. So you need to take care about the relation that change over time. So I probably will put some dummy on time reset to that.
I mean, the model, I mean, this is something I didn't address in my presentation. It's evolving. We will have
just as a suggestion. I look this because before they are similar, then the gray increase a little bit more, and then we have from 2015 increasing in the red component that is in percentage higher than the gray, and from 2021 we have the inverse relation. But you see that in 2012 they are equal, in 2021 they are equal, and you have the inverse later on. So I suppose there is a kind of relation with respect to time. So you need probably to have some time component. I don't know. This is
I mean,
a suggestion, but I don't know.
I have to say this founded versus non-founded is and descriptive is the weakest of the test, because again, in the founded you have some part which were not active. If you look the active, it's a little bit, but I think the inferential analysis, it's much more robust. This is just, you know, ratios and box plots. So, and you have a lot of variability. So I think it's probably the model is going to be, but this about the time is
okay. We didn't see methodological approach, so it's just a suggestion, but I don't know precisely what you do. So this is the point.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Now it's time for a question from the audience. If there are any questions from the audience, please raise your hand and it's your time. No one of you, please don't be shy. Oh, please, Emanuela.
More than a question is a comment. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's really interesting to see how the cost actions have positively, let me say, influenced the way in which some inequalities, some unbalanced participation can be have been developed. So I understand that there are some results which are really surprising, and also that there are some capability of this instrument to improve the shape of the collaboration. That's clear, because some less categories of scientists are now the possibility to cooperate, to initiate a collaboration, and so on. But then when I see the results of the predictions, so the predictive test, my question and my comment for you is, okay, we have improved the inclusiveness, but the problem of having an optimal shape of collaboration, is it realized, or the new included scholars tend to reproduce the same kind of homophily and elements that aggregate collaboration? So the shape become more or less the same, suboptimal shape, but the benefit is just that other scholars have the opportunities to collaborate.
Thank you, Manuel. Very interesting. I was thinking about that this morning. I mean, the next step would be to see, but these include target countries, for example, go on collaborating with other people from the same country, or yes, very, very interesting thing. I think maybe one idea could be to check the diversity of the collaborations at the beginning and the end. So it's not just that's a very fascinating question, actually. Yeah, so it's not just, yeah, they collaborate more, but with whom they collaborate. You know, do we see more collaboration between high status and low status scientists, for example? Yeah, thank you. Very, very challenging, but important point. Yes, thank you.
Okay, we have two more questions. The first one is Gemma Andreone, and then we have Martin Fenkel. Please, Gemma.
Good morning, and sorry, but my camera is not working anymore, so I cannot show me up. But thank you so much for this intervention, this workshop. And I, more than a question, I have just a comment, and because I have chaired a cost action from 2012 to 2016, so I can confirm most of the results of this work in the sense, and specifically concerning the improvement of gender balance and the removing obstacles to and barriers to women in their career. So I can testify that my visibility in Europe had a huge improvement during and after the cost action I was chairing, and it was on legal issues, so social sciences, maritime security, legal issues, and it was something very, very useful to me as for my my aims in the framework of my specific activity in Italy, but also for all other women involved that were early stage researcher women, and they really had an improvement in their career. So I can measure what happened in my cost action concerning participants. And one of the aspect that is really interesting to me is that now, and in few years, I guess it's changing, no? So I submitted the proposal in 2011, and at that time it was the idea of peripheric, the inclusiveness already, but now it seems more structured, and also the idea that and my experience is that we were at that time still you know, not peripheral, we as Italy, I mean, not peripheral, but still very anachronistic system. So, for example, I used cost action rules as a way to impose entre guillemets and to affirm my ideas of how to manage the action, because at that time my possibility to do this in the framework of my domain and in Italy was very low. So I could affirm my ideas just using these cost action rules, for example, involving more female or involving more early stage researchers, and so it was really successful on that side. Concerning the inclusiveness of other countries, peripheral countries, as for example Macedonia or even Portugal at that time was considered as such. Yes, I can testify that they were really involved in more research, and but that the the division and the difference between states and between countries in Europe is still something that is lasting, and I noted it also for the north and the south of Europe. So there was really a misconfidence of northern countries, for example, toward the southern countries. So there are several other aspects that are very interesting to study, according to me. And yes, this was my experience, very, very positive anyway. And thank you so much for this workshop.
Please, Marco, if you want to reply to the comment.
Thank you. I think I don't have any particular thing to add. I think it's interesting to hear. Thank you.
Okay, please, Martin.
Thank you for your nice presentation. I would like to ask about the dynamics of these collaborations in time. If you looked a bit closer also on this, how that evolves during the lifetime of action, and if there is also some progress in these collaborations, like after the end of the action, which is like related to the sustainability of this impact of the actions. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin. Well, what we can see also from previous analysis we conducted is, again, there is a lag because the action starts and then you have a couple of years before starting to observe the effect. Typically, they finish end of 2019 and we measure in 2023. And we still see the effect in 2023. So we can still see an impact after the action is over. And that, I think, is quite intuitive because, again, it goes back to the literature, which finds that when you start a collaboration, it goes on for a long time. And my experience, I've been part of cost actions many years ago, and I'm still collaborating with these people. So it had a durable impact on my network. And but this is just anecdotal. If you look at the data, you can see that the spread between treated and non-treated goes on and amplifies even after the end of the action. I think Antonio.
Yes, sorry. Okay, thank you. Antonio, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marco, for this interesting presentation. I have a question and a curiosity. You know that in coauthorship networks, knowledge networks, an important mechanism is the preferential attachment. So, in your case, did you observe any evidence of preferential attachment mechanisms within the cost action, in particular, especially in terms of inclusivity of early career researchers? So, because this is, I think, is an important aspect for early career research, but also for peripheral institutions. So people from peripheral countries. Then I have a curiosity about the specific activities within cost actions, because I know that there are more activities, for instance, meetings or schools for younger researchers. So what are I don't know if it's possible to answer to this question, or this is a curiosity in my case, what are the main action activities that are more effective in fostering long-term collaborations for early career researchers? I don't know if it's clear my first question and then we also have the specific activities.
Antonio, very interesting, both points. So the first, I think, goes a bit back to also what Emanuela said. So the impact on the shape of collaboration, of who collaborates with whom. So that's something we can explore if we have a preferential attachment mechanism, an homophily, or whatever. In terms of preferential attachment, you can see that both eventually is a good or a bad thing, because it's good that you have collaboration between scholars of different experience or status or whatever you want to call. On one hand, in the other side, it could be like, again, drawing resources to the leader, you know, so you can see these from both perspectives. But that's another point to look at in the microdata, if it's doable, again, because we have a lot of things, and you know, conceptualizing is one thing, then measuring it's another. But that's definitely the next step to be done. Regarding the second point, can you tell me again, because
Yeah, the specific activities that promote the long-term collaboration in young research.
So what we did in a previous analysis, we didn't do it yet with this sample, but it's something that we did before, was to test different type of activities. And if you wait a second, I can tell you. The greatest is the meetings. Then also because you have much more meetings, you know, so you have training school, short-term mobility. They are effective, but actually what we can see is the number of meetings. And of course, the more meetings you go, the greater the effects. So if you go more than 4 meetings, for example, it is, you know, a greater effect than just going to one, for example. But yeah, again, there are very nice questions you can think of. There are, of course, some limitations in terms of the data, you know, as always, but it's a fascinating question. You know, what is the type of networking activity which is more impactful? From our numbers, it seems the meetings, also because there are more. You know, you don't have 10 short-term mobility or 10 training schools, you know, you have 1 typically.
Okay. Any question? Other question from the audience? Okay, I think that we can thank you, Marco, for his presentation. Thank you, Barbara, for the discussion, and all the participants to the seminar for the question and the discussion that have animated. Thank you again, Marco. Thank you. That your paper is really, really interesting, and we hope to have you in person here as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lucio, Barbara, IRCrES, Antonio. Bye, Manuel.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, we have at the end. Thank you to all of you, and we'll see you for the next seminar. Bye-bye.